Hey everybody, this is Chris Russo. Thanks for joining us here for video number 4 in our 5-part series, Understanding Medicare at 65. In video 3, we started to get into the supplemental insurance when we were talking about Medicare. So we talked in video 3 about Medigap plans, and today we're going to be talking about the other type of supplemental insurance you can get, and these are called Medicare Advantage plans. So if we go back to our overall picture of Medicare, you can see the path on the left we talked about in the last video, and today we're going to talk about the path on the right. You can only go down one path or the other, so you got to pick one. So you can also see in this chart that Medicare Advantage plans are also known as Part C of Medicare. So just like Medigap plans were also called Medicare Supplement plans, you have Medicare Advantage plans that are also known as Part C. So they're just two different names for the same type of coverage. So before we dive into some of the advantages and disadvantages of Medicare Advantage plans, let's take a look at some of their basics. The first thing to point out is that Medicare Advantage plans are network plans. They're managed care plans. So you have a group of doctors, hospitals, and healthcare providers that agree to accept that type of insurance. Most of them are either HMOs or PPOs. So if you get treated in network, you're going to pay the network out-of-pocket amounts, which are typically much lower. If you go outside of network, then depending on the type of Advantage plan it is, you're either not going to be covered at all, even if that healthcare provider accepts Medicare, or you might be covered, but you're going to pay a much higher out-of-pocket amount to see that out-of-network healthcare provider. The only exception is if it's an emergency, then you'll be treated outside of network just like you will be as if you saw an in-network provider. The second thing to point out is that Medicare Advantage plans, known as Part C, we talked about that a few minutes ago, they're optional to sign up for. So we talked about Part A and Part B of Medicare in a previous video. You need to have those in place. But Part C of Medicare is optional because if we consider you have to choose between one of the two types of supplemental insurances. You have to choose between Medigap plans and Medicare Advantage plans. If you choose a Medigap plan, then you're not going to be having a Medicare Advantage plan, so you won't be choosing Part C of Medicare. And that's a good segue into our third point. We talked about Part A and Part B. You do need to have those in place if you have a Medicare Advantage plan. You can't just have Part A only. And that's going to be the same whether you have a Medigap plan or Medicare Advantage. You do need to have Part A and Part B for either way you decide to go down. So we also talked in a previous video about how most folks don't pay a premium for Part A. Most folks this year are going to pay a premium in 2020 of $144.60 a month for Part B. So you do need to have those in place. A lot of Medicare Advantage plans, though, in most places around the country are zero premium plans. So that doesn't mean, I should say it does mean that the plans don't charge an additional premium to have that plan in place. So you'll simply pay your Part A, if any premium, your Part B premium, and then you'll be able to get a Medicare Advantage plan in quite a few places around the country for zero premium. However, they do go up to sometimes a few $100s a month depending on what part of the country that you're in. So a lot of Advantage plans do charge an additional premium every month to have that plan in place, but there are quite a few zero premium plans in most states. So you may be thinking to yourself, Chris, how can an insurance company afford to provide me a plan that I'm not going to pay for? If I get this zero premium plan from an insurance company, what benefit is it to them to offer it? So in order to answer that question, we have to look behind the scenes a little bit. When you sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, you're being temporarily disenrolled from original Medicare, from Medicare Part A and Part B. So when you sign up for an Advantage plan, even though you might not pay them anything extra, any premium for that coverage, Medicare now gives that insurance company about $600 to $900 a month, so somewhere around the neighborhood of $10,000 a year to provide your health care. But in doing so, Medicare now is no longer responsible for providing your care. That insurance company is now completely responsible for your healthcare coverage. So they get to set the amounts that you pay for doctor's visits, for prescription drugs, for tests, outpatient procedures, each stay in the hospital. They now get to completely set the rules for how much you pay when you use your coverage, as well, not only the costs, but the network that you have to stay in when you get treated. So even though they get to choose all of these out-of-pocket amounts, Medicare still does have to approve them, but now the responsibility is no longer with Medicare to provide your health care. It's now on the Medicare Advantage plan. All right, now that we have a pretty good handle on the basics of Medicare Advantage plans, kind of have an idea of how they work, let's start talking about their advantages and disadvantages. One of the biggest advantages we've already talked about, the zero premium plans. It's probably the biggest reason that folks sign up with a Medicare Advantage plan is because most of you can get a zero premium plan. If you compare it to the other option of getting a Medigap plan with a standalone prescription plan, then you do need to pay a premium for the Medigap plan. You need to pay a premium for the drug plan. Compare that with a zero premium Medicare Advantage plan. Not only is it going to provide coverage for things like hospital coverage, medical coverage, doctor's visits, but most Medicare Advantage plans, even the zero premium plans, will throw in prescription coverage too. So you kind of have an overall managed care plan that does give you prescription coverage too for that zero premium. Another popular reason folks choose Medicare Advantage plans is because they throw in what I call freebies. So most, if not all, Medicare Advantage plans are going to give you things like free gym memberships at participating locations, zero co-pays for things like preventative vision and dental, things like teeth cleaning a couple times a year, oral exams when you have that teeth cleaning visit, and then for a routine eye exam to check and to see if you, let's say, need a new set of glasses. A lot of the preventative stuff there is offered at either zero copay or a very low copay. Sometimes they do throw in additional coverage, maybe like $100 every other year for a new set of glasses, or a couple $100 a year to use toward more advanced dental procedures, things like root canals and crowns. But for the most part, when they do throw in your vision and dental coverage, it's definitely not comprehensive. For the most part, it's just covering those preventative needs. If we start to take a look at some of the disadvantages of Medicare Advantage plans, the biggest one, in my opinion, is that restriction to where you can get treated. So most Medicare Advantage plans are going to be PPOs or HMOs. With a PPO, if you stay inside of network, you're going to get your lowest costs to see one of those doctors, hospitals, in-network healthcare providers. They do give you a feature, freedom to go outside of network and still be covered. They'll still take your insurance, but you're going to pay a much higher out-of-pocket amount to see one of those out-of-network doctors. With a pure HMO, you're not covered at all if you go outside of network. So even if that doctor accepts Medicare, if they don't accept your Medicare Advantage plan, you're not covered at all. Always, though, with an exception being if it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, you can still see an out-of-network doctor and be treated for the scope of that emergency just as if you're in network. Now, some HMOs do give you some flexibility to see an out-of-network doctor. There are plans called HMO POS plans. The POS stands for point of service. So sometimes you have those plans that do give you freedom to see an out-of-network doctor for basic things, for a limited scope of things. You'll still pay a bit more, like a PPO, to see those out-of-network doctors, but you do have some flexibility there. Another feature of HMOs is, for the most part, you're going to need to get a referral to see a specialist. So if you want to see a heart doctor or a lung doctor or even a foot doctor, most times you're going to need to get permission from your primary doctor in order to see one of those specialists. Another thing that Medicare Advantage plans do have that you don't quite realize until you really start to use that coverage is you can run into other barriers and other restrictions to care even beyond that network restriction. So even if you stay within network and go to an in-network facility, because it's an insurance company that you're requiring or depending on to get approval for whatever you need to have done, rather than original Medicare, a lot of times you can run into more restrictions and delays. So to give you an example, let's say you're in the hospital for a week and the doctor releases you from the hospital, but instead of sending you home, they want to send you to a skilled nursing facility. They want to send you to kind of a post-hospital stay to get better first before you come home. So you go to the post-hospital stay, you're in there for 3 or 4 days, you're not getting better, but you need to go back in and be readmitted to the hospital. In situations like that, a lot of times you're going to run into barriers where There's going to be delays on getting approval from the insurance company to get readmitted to the hospital. There's going to be a bit more red tape and just a bit more of a delay. Sometimes you can be denied that readmittance. They might require you to stay in the skilled nursing facility a bit longer. So just keep in mind that sometimes when you use your care with an Medicare Advantage plan, you can run into more of these kind of restrictions to care and delays with an Advantage plan compared to going with original Medicare and having a Medigap plan to go along with it. The second biggest disadvantage of going with a Medicare Advantage plan are much higher potential out-of-pocket amounts. So with a Medicare Advantage plan, generally you're going to pay something every time you use your plan. Every time you have a hospital stay, you need to get blood work done, have a doctor's visit, need an outpatient procedure like cataract surgery. Generally, every time you use your Advantage plan, you're going to have to pay something, some type of a copay or coinsurance. Now, a lot of plans do give more basic services like primary care visits and routine blood work with no copay. So there's going to be a zero copay for some basic services, but for the most part, you're going to pay something every time you use your plan. And every Medicare Advantage plan does have what's known as a maximum out-of-pocket amount. So it does set a ceiling on how much you could be liable for in any given year for out-of-pocket expenses. But the problem is that maximum out-of-pocket amount tends to be anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. It'll be a bit more if you get your care outside of network. That maximum out-of-pocket amount's a bit lower if you stay entirely in network. But compare that to getting a Medigap plan, like a Medigap Plan G, where basically your maximum out-of-pocket amount is just that Medicare Part B deductible of $198. So that's the most you'd spend out-of-pocket with a Medigap plan compared to getting a Medicare Advantage plan. You could possibly be on the hook for several hundred, if not several $1,000s out of pocket if you're kind of managing one or more chronic health conditions or if you simply just have a bad health year. So that's going to do it today for our discussion on Medicare Advantage plans. I'd love to hear any questions or comments that you have. If you do have any, please leave them below the video and I'll get to them just as soon as I can. And if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button or subscribe button. It not only helps me grow my channel, but you'll be notified just a bit quicker in the future when I do make other Medicare related videos. So we have one more video in the series. In the last video, we're going to tie everything together. We're going to go over both types of supplemental insurances, show you how to pick the one that's going to work best in your situation, and then from there, show you the best way to go about picking the exact plan to go with, the insurance company to go with, and really find the quickest and easiest way to get signed up with whatever plan you decide that's going to be best for you. So thanks again for joining us and look forward to seeing you in the last video of our Understanding Medicare at 65 series. So take care for now.